What is going on, you guys? It's your girl Diana, back at you with another YouTube video. A couple of days ago, I finally got my very own shiny Greninja, and I was so excited to start training it and using it in battle. That is until I saw how severely nerfed it got. So today, we're gonna talk about it because they really did my boy dirty. So if you're new here, make sure that you subscribe because it helps you grow out, and give this video a thumbs up so that we can push it out into the YouTube algorithm so that more Pokemon fans can see it. And if you would like another way to support the channel, please feel free to check out the merch store. There is a link down below in the description that takes you to not only my merch store, but also all of my other socials so you can keep up with what I'm doing on a daily basis. But let's go ahead and take a look at Greninja. So let's go ahead and start off by looking at Greninja when it was actually in its prime. And that was when there was actually two different forms of Greninja. We had base form Greninja and we had Ash Greninja, which currently in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, since its reintroduction, we only have base form Greninja, so already a nerf, but we'll get into that in a second. But base form Greninja has an HP stat of 72, an attack stat of 95, defense of 67, special attack of 103, special defense of 71, and speed of 122. So some pretty good stats. It's supposed to be a fast mixed attacker. There's also three different abilities that Greninja can have: Battle Bond, Protean, and Torrent, with Battle Bond being the #1 choice of ability, followed by Protean. And Battle Bond was actually a special ability that you could only get in the Sun and Moon demo. And what Battle Bond did was allow you to transform your base form Greninja into Ash Greninja, which, if you just look at the comparison in the stats, it got huge stat increases by changing form. Its attack stat was raised to 145, its special attack was raised to 153, and its speed was raised to 132. So this thing was definitely scary. And all you had to do to get your base form Greninja to turn into Ash Greninja is 1, have Battle Bond on it, and 2, knock out your opponent. Which, even with Greninja's original stats, that clearly would not be too much of an issue. And on top of these huge stat increases, Battle Bond also had the added bonus that it would make Greninja's signature move, Water Shuriken, go from a base power of 15 to a base power of 20. And it would hit 3 times. So that's quite a bit of damage. So I think it's relatively obvious as to why people liked using this Pokemon. That, and it just looks cool. Not to mention, even if you weren't able to get a Greninja with Battle Bond, Protean was still a great option back in the day because it allowed you to change your Pokemon's type into whatever type move that you were using multiple times without switching out. It's basically the same thing as Cinderace's Libero in Pokemon Sword and Shield. So even if you weren't able to get all of the stat increases by having a Battle Bond Greninja that could transform into Ash Greninja, you would still be able to have a broken ability. But now that we've seen how broken Greninja was previously, let's take a look at it in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet now that it's been reintroduced after so many years. So like I said, in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, we only have one form of Greninja, which is base form Greninja. So it has the exact same stats as the base form in the previous generations. So 72 HP, 95 attack, 67 defense, 103 special attack, 71 defense, and 122 speed. So still a fast mixed attacker. It does still have access to the 3 different abilities: Battle Bond, Protean, and Torrent. However, this is where the nerfs begin, starting off with Battle Bond. So obviously, Greninja can no longer become Ash Greninja. Ash Greninja literally does not exist in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So now what Battle Bond does is, after you KO your opponent, it's gonna raise your attack, special attack, and speed by 1 stage once per battle. You only get the stat increase once. But I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, Battle Bond is not good in this gen, so why even bother having it? I'll just give it the ability Protean. Wrong, because Protean got nerfed as well, which I'm sure all of my Meowscarada users are very well aware of. Because now, instead of being able to switch your type whenever you use a different typed move, you're only able to switch your type once per switch-in. Which means, for example, if I use Gunk Shot, Greninja will then become a poison type. However, it will stay a poison type even if I use Water Shuriken my next turn, unless I switch it out and switch it back in and use Water Shuriken again. Then it'll turn into a water type. So it's very inconvenient. They also did the same thing to Libero, so they basically nerfed all of the broken abilities. So considering that Greninja no longer gets a form chain that gives it huge stat increases, and Battle Bond only helps you once per battle, and Protean was also nerfed so that you can only change your type once per switch-in, Greninja's just kind of okay now. It's no longer the threat that it used to be. And it honestly does really suck that they did nerf Greninja this much, just because Pokemon like Palafin exist in Gen 9, which Palafin works very similarly to how Greninja used to work. Palafin has the ability 0 to Hero, which means when you switch it out and you switch it back in, it undergoes a form change into its Hero form, which gives it huge stat increases. If you look at Palafin's base stats, they're not good. But when it turns into its Hero form, it literally gets a stat increase in almost every single stat, besides HP and speed. Which this is a point that a lot of people are making, is that why does a Pokemon like this exist that's obviously in Ubers at this point because its hero form is such a broken form, but they had to nerf Greninja? I don't know, in my opinion they did it really dirty, especially considering that Greninja quite literally hasn't been in the games in forever. So for it to come back and get nerfed this hard, jail. I mean, even right now, according to Smogon, it is in overuse, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did fall out of overuse just because of how nerfed it actually is. But I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on all of the changes that they've made to Greninja ever since reintroducing it into the games in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So leave them down below in the comments. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Love you guys. Bye.